Ladies and gentlemen, I am sitting here with Xolisa Ngubelanga, a master in creative writing, um, someone that I've seen and I've experienced. His presence is almost you are standing on holy ground or royal ground. He allows the world to move slowly around him. There's no one who's in a hurry when they are sitting and talking to Xolisa Ngubelanga. I've experienced his work around Nelson Mandela Bay, where I think it's conversation with
Victoria.
Victoria. Oh, I think that was the best
Yeah.
work I've seen. I think it might be one of the best work I've seen like in my whole lifetime, especially created by someone that I can touch, that is close by, that we can experience, we can hear, and who's readily available to talk to us whenever we need him to come through. Xolisa, welcome.
Thank you, Olom, Mr. Blackhead. My
Siyabulela, thanks
pleasure,
for
my brother.
coming, sir. Thanks
Yeah,
for coming. We've been meaning to have this conversation for a while, but I'm glad that it's happening today.
yeah.
Hopefully, no one is rushing. I mean that, there's a sense of calm around you. There's a sense of let the world form and contour around your thinking, your emotions, your pace. Where does that come from? Has anybody ever told you that?
Yeah, a lot of people have told me where it comes from. And Ngeyasekhaya, into yasekhaya. My grandfather passed away in 1971, but it's something ethethwe kakhulu kum uba hey for then uyamphila laa mntu, you know. And interesting xa sizayiqala ngolu hlobo le topic, because it feeds to many other things like his spirituality and I'm not so sure about the reincarnation, but the fact that spirit evolves, uyabo. Ithetha kakhulu ke ngobuhlole namanyange for me. Xa ndibhekelisa i-reincarnation, I don't necessarily feel as if he is now the second or I am the second him, but rather a continuation.
Continuation.
So I don't subscribe kakhulu to reincarnation, but I do believe in lineage, umnombo. Yeah, so that's where it comes from. Utamkhulu Kereb Ngubelanga, uzengele, uncasana, uminyela, usotywala, umhlangabeza, usikhonza, wasecisirha.
What else do you remember about? Do you remember anything about him? Have you met him?
71.
Oh, 71.
Never seen
Oh,
him.
yes, 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 yes.
Zange ndabona nefoto.
Yes, yes.
But naye ke wayengumuntu abantu ke abadala bona bathi yayingumuntu okuthanda ukudlalisa, uyabo. He would randomly just pop into characters. He was known as a joker. Wayengumuntu onenkcubeko. Wayeyingcibi. Yeah, so wayengumuntu othanda ukubhala naye, uyabo. Ngokwelaa xesha he was the most educated ekhaya. Yala mntu wakwazi ukuhlala esikolweni ngenxa yokubhala, uyabo, until standard 6. So yeah.
And then, did he give birth to your mom or your father?
Tatam.
Okay, so this is your paternal heritage.
Yes.
Do you want to trace anything back from that? Because I want to ask about your maternal heritage as well.
Kweli cala lakatata,
Yeah.
I'm everything. There's akho nto caba ndiyazithuma to trace. My immediate existence, I believe it does all of that. Njengokuphefumla, igama Ngubelanga, the reason behind ukuthiwa even uXolisa, is in itself a manifestation of what was happening ekhaya in the space, uXolisa ke to bring together people. Yeah, man, yandicingisa ngoku because kukho nee-plays efike ndizibhalile around my existence, and one of those plays, he plays about inkomo, and how things got shifted within the home dynamic, yeah, well, because a lot of conflict was created ekhaya around the apartheid system of deep inkomo, you know, and how umzekelo you have ikhaya lakwaNgubelanga but izindlu zininzi, but i-apartheid system yayisithi permit ibenye phakathi kwekhaya, not necessarily acknowledging izindlu, uyabo. So i-permit yakwaNgubelanga yayigcinwa ngubani othile kwalapha kwaNgubelanga, and then zonke ezinkomo zezi zindlu zi-under ubani, uyabo, under ke ngoku recognize ngomthetho as ubani. So that's like a very fertile ground with which in which family conflicts were organized or started ngeli xesha, you know. And yeah, nasekhaya that happened. Xolisa ke ngoku, uyabo.
To bring all of these fighting,
Fighting, you know,
groupings within the family.
xa ukhulile phuma kwikhaya elinesiphiwo nesandla, you know, umkhonto wengcibi, soze ungatyaliwa mos nangezo zinto, uyabo, because for us that is our crown, you know. Yeah, so yeah, there's just Xolisa, bra, I'm a call for peace
For that.
within a very complicated and conflict-ridden space. Yeah, so yeah, I just hope that by the time now I'm laid to rest, I would have manifested Igama. Yeah.
And then your parents, who gives birth to you, I almost see you reprimanding or correcting elders, or giving order, or abantu abadala coming knowing that they need to be orderly around you.
No, it happens a lot, and it happens a lot with its own repercussions. And just get the humor that all these isn't bringing to the home. Yeah, but yeah, there's a lot of that. I'm translating umbuzo workers who I take after.
Yeah, and also I want you to bring your parents, like your upbringing.
Yeah, my upbringing is a very simple one. Father, typical father, you know.
Wasepai.
Wasengqushwa, but ke ngosilapha eBhayi ke ngoku, uyabo. Kwakukho ifem dala Interstex, you know. So my father was into HR corner, but Interstex was one of those firms that ngexesha kakuthengiswa ngabantu, you know. Nayo it was caught in that the middle of that. And yeah, my father naye was compromised, but for yena he sided with abasebenzi, you know, and as a result, you know, because of how big this company was, I still get those moments whereby xa siphakame siyibhekile engqushwa, and we'll be like, yeah, utata kunenyani kwadeni, don't, you know what I mean. So there's that. Mamam is a nurse about to go into retirement, but for me, yabona abantu who made a big impact at the generation before bona, you know, omakhulu, otamkhulu. I'm one of the very fortunate people who wabona ukhokho wabo. Umakhulu Aya, she passed away when I was 10 years old. So I was raised by my mother's grandmother until 10, and you know, that's where the love of story actually was entrenched, because ndiyakhumbula she was a lady wayenomlomo ukekeleyo, but ethanda ukuthetha, you know, that mouth never hindered her from talking, you know, and instilling a lot of memory of self, you know. We both know each other, And we've had many conversations in terms of how the social conditioning leads to the individual character. You know, other people will study Pan-Africanism, Black consciousness, feminism. I had familism, you know. I had Mzukulwanaism, you know, Makuluism, instilled in me from a very young age, you know. So I feel like it's a pity, it's privilege now, you know, because belonging is a privilege, you know, even belonging to a family. But the cooler with memories of self being played back to me regularly. Uyabo, oh ngokwamncinci uthanda ukuthi lo daddy uyakhula wena, you know, it's like oh okay, so ndingumntu onje, you know. Yeah, so it definitely gives you an upper hand, and separates you from people who find themselves in textbook ideologies. Uyabo. Yeah, so maybe that's why my world just
Yeah.
revolves a bit slower. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I've also been raised by my grandparents. I've had interactions with my parents, but not to the extent that I've had with my both my grandmothers. I've missed both my grandfathers. But now, I want us to come to you and your earlier, recollection of who Xolisa is, when you get a sense of self after being played this self, or being told about yourself by people around you. When do you think you had established for yourself a character to say, oh, actually, or this is when I'm establishing who I am?
This is where I'm establishing who I am. That happens much later, my brother. Uyabo. Okanye the consciousness of it. Uyabo, because ukhula mos without necessarily having to establish yourself, but being. Uyabo. But then you see yourself, hey man, this is who I am. I'm not that. Uyabo. And singabantu ke, we've got many multiple stories. So kumu ndingumntu wakhe walahlekela into the technical things of life, uyabo, like your engineerings, your what. And then kofumaniseke uba no man, ndinamagingxigingxi apha, I'm not completing my courses, I'm not doing this. And then I dropped out of college or whatever, varsity. You know, I ended up Pitori ngoko, you know. Ndazongena apha eDabuya, you know. Ndazongena apha ETC, the training center apha
Yes, strongly.
yeah, you know. Did welding phayana around the time ne-Port of Ngqura naye ngathi izawukuma, and the
Probably
career
around
goal
2000.
then was you can be underwater. Isandla naso, you know, I was good at welding as well, you know, as though like some marine welder, blah blah blah. So kwakholondo, I was picked to be in that line of career. But then kwakhona I was like, hey, welding yasokolisa. I left that. Ndayophangela at a company kwakuthiwa yi-Southern Star. Uyabo, 2005, 2006. Ndawelda khona, siwelda i-bucket for kwakusekho no-General Motors mos kwapha eMarkman. Southern Star yayiseMarkman nayo. For i-Isuzu pickups, you know. And then 2006, I walked out, you know, ndashiya ama-refam phayana, ndashiya my overalls phayana, ndaphuma, you know, went to my mother, sat her down. I'm like, Olit, nah, I'm taking my finances and I'm going to a theatre school. Uyabo. Kukho ke sasisewoma ngoku isikole kuthiwa yi-Stage World. Uyabo. I think ngoku silapha somewhere Cape Road or something. Sasisewoma ngoku, and I'm like, no, I'm gonna go and enroll myself up. Uyabo. And that's what I did. Uyabo. But thankfully for family dynamics kwakhona, there was a background investment of story eyayenzekayo. Turns out my mother would cry a lot about my decision making. Ahambe ke yokhalela omalume, obani bani, obani bani, obani bani. You know, but with time, when I go back and ndihlale nomalume, you know, omalume turn my attention to those tears. Ukuthi umama wakho wayekhala, you know, you've done a good job, at least umxolisa now, you know. So at least to the name, it does something, you know, yeah.
And then, because the reason why I'm asking, when you get a sense of self, you know, when friends ask you, hey, let's go and do this, you feel like, I know you guys are going to do that, but I don't feel like I'm going to enjoy it. Therefore, I'm not going.
Look,
You know?
look, for that, ne? Khumbula ke ngoku ubu out siyakhula, you know. Kwela xesha sesiqala yakuthanda man, don't, yabo. So this one day, cousins, friends, uyabo, sidibene ke namantombi engingqi, uyabo, sihleli apha enobathanda kwazakhela, yabo, kwezi ndawo kuthiwa zii-gap tap apha eBhayi.
Yeah, ndizibona kakuhle.
Uyazibona ne?
Ndizibona
Yeah.
kakuhle. Kaloku
So
ngolapha evuko.
yeah, ne? Yeah. Yeah. Grand. So sihleli ke sancokola. My cousin is busy there, my friend is busy there, nam busy up. But apha kukho umhlaba man, you know. Or very attractive. The soil was just very attractive for me. Yabo. And ke kwa irambula ingeyonto inqabileyo, but like izitena for example, so sihleli kwezi zitena sihleli, yabo nje into ezi. And uXolisa starts, you know, kudlala ngalo mhlaba, ndiyabumba phayana, you know, and girl ulapho. And then she just starts ukuthi, hayi mna ndifuna uhlala nalona mna, lona udlala ngomhlaba, you know. Yeah, and then my cousins put me in a little boy's office. Ukuthi kaloku ayenziwa ngohlobo le nto, afuna udlale ngomhlaba, ufuna ukuthi
Attend.
yeah, yabo. And it's one of my
Was it
points
out of you being nervous now?
the soil was just more intriguing for me.
Okay.
Yabo. And
Okay.
it's one of the stories I always tell to a friend uLudwe Mngolombane. You know, naye he's a ceramic artist mos yena.
Yeah.
Xa ethetha naye ba naye I was a loner, uyabo. Ndandithanda uyozidlalela emlanjeni mna ndibumbe khona. I'm like, nam umfethu. Uyabo. Mhlambe ke sikunye kule nto ye-ceramics ngoku, but
Yeah.
mna I had this encounter, uyabo, in life. And I stopped ceramics and then I focused on writing. Yeah,
Writing.
yeah.
Actually, like, I always would mention Ludwig's work, the bovine stock. There's this woman that he had formed with Inkomo up.
Okay, yeah.
It was one of the most impactful pieces that I've seen. And then I'm gonna skip your schooling because I wanna focus more on now the subject of your writing. Because we know you, I know you as someone who write, theater pieces, and I've had to sort of encounter one of your pieces, Broken Lens,
Yeah.
and also watched a few of your stage, plays. But you are critical. You are someone that seems like you raised an issue about someone coming in with a photographer on one play, with a camera
Camera,
to shoot as they willed, as they wanted on one play. And then another play you talk about a conflict between Victoria and Xhosa King. Was it Yinsa or
It's the
Makoma that
Xhosa
you
king is not necessarily
named
a person, yabo, but more
or
of the virtue
the virtue of
of
Lanu?
Ubuthina, yeah.
So you have this critique of society. It's almost if it's something that bothers you, and that is why I'm asking this question now. What is the subject of your work, of your being?
The subject of my being, my brother. look, like I say, there's definitely something within self, yeah? And I feel like we, it becomes better when we all accept this ngati, you know, that we've got piled up memories of self. And I don't obsess around the meritocracy of writing. Uyabo? Kuti I'm a great writer, and don't. I don't believe I'm a great writer, you know. Because writing is not necessarily what I do. Thinking is what I do. Engaging with people is what I do. And then I document those thoughts and those engagements through writing. Uyabo? Um, so when you've been blessed with memory and human experiences to reflect on, uyabo, as I have, then the documentation of those things, those memories manifest themselves ngolu hlobo. But to just fast forward now and kind of like speak more to specifics in theater and all of that. One of the most memorable moments in my career is now umntu in theater. After going to Esiskolo in Tetengas, you know, I almost dropped out Napaya, actually, you know, because that figure Payana, that was confronted with Bubulungu too much. You know, and I got angry. But 2008, I had the opportunity to meet and work with Nomhle Nkonyeni, you know, and then we formed a friendship, you know. And I remember she came to visit as a scholar besifunda kuso, yabo. And ndeva mna, because it was a small school, ndeva ibhele ibetha, yabo. Ndaphuma ba okay ndiyojonga uba ngubani osemnyango, yabo. And then there she was. Besendimazi, besesazana, we've already worked together, you know. And then it's like, hi molo mama, blah blah blah, you know. And then she comes in and ndamhlalisa mna ofisini ye-principal, you know, of the school. And then she was like, bapha abantu balapha. Hey, andibazi andikho sure mama. Okay, but then she stole me, yeah, because I think ndandiphume eklasini wandiba, you know, for a while. And then wandincokolisa ke uba okay nenza ntoni apha kakundixelele kufundwa ntoni, blah 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 blah. And then I remember these moments. It's like, oh, iklasi yantoni leya? Hayi, history, theatre history. Oh, nifunda ntoni kwi-theatre history? Hayi, Greeks. Yabo. Hayi, blah 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 blah. Hayi, acting technique, blah. Nifundiswa ntoni? Hayi, Stanislavski. You know, that was her. And it resulted in her saying, come to my house. Yabo. Yeah, man. When she said, come to my house, and even that moment is a theoretical moment nalo. Nayo, because yayazi I think it's yazi Tsewu andikho sure ngowaphi yabo. Yeah, but eventually man ndayofika kuye, and ile nto yakhe ivangeli yakhe was read African writers, yabo. And then she exposed me to African writers, and then she exposed me to what I believe is an authentically African way of creating theater, which is a theater based on engagement. Yeah, because the Eurocentric one that I was also exposed to, Lendoza, Stanislavski, and you know all these other big names that the gatekeepers usually use. That's my attitude towards this, you know, of you becoming a character, you imploring some form of alien genius, you know, so that you become the character. I turned away from that and I said, you know what, a character is someone I can see, someone I can touch, you know. So if you give me a text here, and then I imagine Uba Ukhatebe from 3 blocks away, then I go to Uba Ukhatebe, right? Then Dilingansa yena. You know what I mean? And she was so invested in her character form, you know, and creating that there would be times xa uthetha naye ne within a rehearsal space or even in the writing process, athi, who does this remind you of? Uyabo? And then when you say ABCD, Olwam, and then you do something that is un-Olwam, you know, her concern was never, but no, that character was like, aye, sumenza lendo Olwam, you know. So she married, there was a bridge between
Yes.
whatever you are, the understanding that you are reflecting a people. And when you are reflecting a people, there's integrity that comes into play. It's not just about entertainment. Uyabo? To us, namhlanje, theatre has become entertainment because we've been robbed of integrity, right? But when you want to restore integrity, then there's certain things you take seriously, you know, such as the character development, because you want to portray the people for who they are, you know, for their sense of purpose, for their being, you know. And sometimes even though they are compromised as abantu baselokishini, but you understand that there is inner layers kubo, and you wish to achieve that. Uyabo? So yeah, that is my theatre making process. Uyabo? It is a theatre process that I can't say ilap or there. Uyabo? But it's a theatre process that I can acknowledge it is one that is born or incubated through multiple human experiences in Diendanazo. Uyabo? And yeah, Mama Nomhle played a huge part as the individual that she is, you know. Or yeah, is Uyabo? Because of la close proxy. Yeah.
And then out of this, you've also traveled, and now I can even sense the confidence that one gets when you now travel. Number one, to go either in Namibia or is it Ethiopia, where you basically go to do work that you care about. Do you want to tell us a bit about your traveling and about the work that you've done?
So Namibia was a beautiful experience. Ndahamba ndayohlala namaqhakanqa. COVID messed a lot of stuff up, man. Yeah, well, that was a beautiful project. Yayisaqala. I'm gonna bring it back, you know, but ke ngoku South African pin and invest into admin. So it was a 3-year project, and maybe it's a beautiful thing that it's not, because ngokubiza banezinye like ba yeah usebenza namamelika what within the context, yabo. But so 2018 I went to East States with the Mandela Washington Fellowship. And what it does is that it grants you access to funding. Yabo. Then 2019, I got funding from the US to collaborate with a fellow Namibian artist. Yabo. And then 2019, we start this project. There's a play that I had written. Yabo. And then I go to a Namibia and I translate this play and I workshop it, you know, in terms of layering ideology. But no, you just put it up, you know, with Khoi sense, as I say, Tsumkwe. Way up in Namibia, closer to Angola, like right there. And we worked, man. Couldn't understand half of the things that were being said within the space, but still felt like you belong. Still felt like you're part of something bigger than yourself, which is something I strongly advise white people to start learning. So that so that we, you know, we bring in other people. So I go to this place and then a beautiful thing, man. Like I can't way to explain that process. But to be exposed to that level of humanity, that level of simplicity, and colonization, because it's bad in Namibia. If you think South Africa is bad with the land things, it's bad in Namibia, or at least in this region, Dandikuyu. Because it's literally a village, ne? Hilali. But now, and it's proper Khoisan, whatever that means. And ilihlathi indawo yakhona, you know, in that Namibian arid way. Uyakwazi ukuthi sime apha sihlele apha voyogqina indlovu sopha uyabo. You understand? Yeah, so it's like that. But then the colonization was also very present, because in all of that there was constantly 4x4s and happening. Uyabo. Yeah. So the play on was called Tongue of the Stars, kind of like to create a play around Iskakang, using that as a language. But COVID happened, it was 2020, I was supposed to go back to actually now do the production now, and stay there and workshop the acting and the whatnot. But 2020 happened. Some of the directors and people in power, you know, America changed some of its policies, and then
funds were redirected, probably.
Funds were redirected, but you know what? It's one of my highlights. I still have as a script. I still have it in both in English and Iskakang, you know. The direction, the Lenduzas Payana, I still have images of the moment. And you know, that you must write a report. I took a stand, like I'm not writing a report. I'm not incorporating pictures in my report. I'll write you the narrative, because I'm not going to participate in the poverty porn. I'm not going to be that guy who was in this four. Strangely enough, at one moment, then I born and Namgi Mobu Artechat Bam, you don't mind.
No.
The copy camera, why the cameras is it as people, because I'm part of them. I'm the coupe yam, they chunks are they sped out of that moment, you know. The politics of broken lands, you know, who must be subjected to, you know. And then I've done theater in Malawi.
Oh, Malawi, it's not.
I've done theater in Malawi. Actually, I don't no conversation with Victoria in Malawi. You know, adapted it to the Malawian context. Where surprisingly there's this street, you know, most with Pan-Africanism, a lot of African nations renamed this strato. But then there's this intersection of two main roads, I think Uchipembe, one of the activists, the main activists of Payano, Chipembe. And Uchipembe crosses with Victoria, you know. And it's like, nice, and then we collaborated with, but I'm now speaking to the universality of good or well-written Lendoza theater or stories, you know, because when it's not, what is entertaining here is not entertaining there.
Yeah.
But integrity is a thread that runs through.
Again, this street that crosses Victoria, you can pull a lot of synergies and, you know, sort of equivalence. Take, for instance, there's a question that came up a few years back, I think just around 2015, the Mandela Rhodes. That's another intersection, and of which you said that they were your funder. And then the question of a Xhosa king and a conversation with the Victoria. It's another sort of intersection that could be drawn. And as it goes, and I find this quite an important conversation. Of course, it has been had a couple of times, but I want to hear your rationality around the importance of having the West and Africa either to speak, to critique each other, or should they fight? Especially with the background that we have of 100 years of dispossession in the Eastern Cape. What should be the current attitude
Yeah.
between these two previously warring sides? And you can use art or creative writing as a lens through which you
Yeah.
respond.
I don't think the conversation has been had.
Okay.
Yeah, well, I think I personally don't even want to be part of the conversation. You know, my creating is me creating. You know, I don't want to. I'm not contributing to any form of conversation or reconciliation between the colonized and the colonizer. You know, I couldn't care less about those public relations. You know, for me, and again, it's observing people. Yeah, well, up Zans, main road, main street, Government, and that Victorian statue there.
Yeah.
The inspiration now to the conversation with Victoria, to be specific. There was a lady Dala. Yeah, well, others would say Yakula. Others would, you know, say all kinds of things. But she would go, I don't know where she's coming from. Nama would just rock up this Zambela and see her there, you know. And she would be draped in Ngubo, but in Amabalengwe, you know. She's, I guess, and she's projecting her own particular royalty. And she would address this thing. And she would ask it, you know? And she would bring like palm leaves, yabo, and other things. As shepa, man in, ambab, sisakfontin, yabo. And the conversation around this particular lady was, hey, you know, people back to it, oh, and she was a regular, you know. But people would constantly say, yakula lo mama, don't, hey, unestukuthes lo mama, mama ten lo uvukayo, and azothetha nelitya. But for me, it was like, no, man. And of course, nendlebe most, I was like, hey, mom has dead is into lo mama. Yani? Yeah. And I just want to ukufikela enye yezinto that for me she intrigued within me, you know, the building of Itawa, Ipofolo, how Ipofolo became the asylum. Uyabo? I don't have, you know, academics and research. I don't have anything tangible to point and say that, but that woman said it, and I remember it. Uyabo? Encoma uVictoria nabantu bakhe ngobuqhinga. Uyabo? Ngoba emva kokuba at the global stage there was anti-colonial laws passed, you know, anti-slavery, wara zonke ezo zinto. And then it became illegal for them to pursue the natives with the might that they were doing. Uyabo? They then changed the strategy. Uyabo? So instead of saying we have arrested so many natives, they then said we are hospitalizing so many insane natives. And she then laid out that as the backstory of Itawa, you know, the asylum effort,
Yes.
of which, when I side with her, because me, I've already made mine, said it's Catholic. When I side with her, in this 100 years of dispossession, Ipofolo was at the center of it. Yabo? That's where Osandile, Osagili, Mfazwe Zembe, and all those things were happening. It was happening there. Yabo? But there were laws that said you can't just, those kafir hands they used to do, you know, you can't do that anymore. So they had to now change the narrative from yeah, we did a kafir hunt and we got 100 natives, ha. It's like, yeah, no. You know, we've admitted 100 natives who are crazy, yes, 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 you know. And this is right, this is what writing is made of, you know. It's being exposed and putting yourself into these points of debate, you know. So for me, this is what Conversations with Victoria is about. It's about identifying a form of intelligence and saying, lo mama kuthiwa uyagula, no, she's brilliant, she's onto something. Yabo. Because ekugqibeleni siyayazi nathi basaqhathwa, you know, but we don't ask saqhathwa ngantoni.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We know now, but we've got jails that we are happily sending criminals to. But we don't ask who they were for first and foremost, and how the legacy of prison and jail relates to Oyinza, you know, who was killed escaping from prison. Do you know what I mean? Or there's been a lot of talk now about Nkosi Maqoma, you know, who himself, you know, Onqele Makhanda also was escaping prison. You know what I mean? So a lot of the things that are now, in terms of what we've accepted as the post-colonial narrative, are very twisted in the past. Yeah, and I just wanted to applaud this woman, you know, and say, no, but Mama, you've got it. And before, because again, now exposed now to issues of feminism and what. Like, why, if it was inspired by a woman, why is it a man? It's character. It's stage contrasting. When you have two opposing forces on stage, it becomes stronger visually and aesthetically. If it's woman to woman, yeah, so that's a theater language, but it's really about that woman. Yeah.
And you're also critiquing your own play now.
No, we
I
must
did not even
conversate. I'm not
think of
God,
that.
remember? Yeah. And again, using the same methodology of how I got to myself, you know. But you take from other people. So you must enrich it, you
Yes.
know, so that whoever oivayo na you can take it. Yeah.
I feel that, of course, we are a defeated people, right? We were defeated in those 100 years of war, and we have not recovered. We've not recovered the land. We've not recovered our social standing. We've not recovered. We have not dictated how we present ourselves to the world until probably few things are starting to come up now. But for all those at that time, I would use from 1779 when the first war happened against the British up until now, we have largely been responding to a status quo that is given to us by those who oppressed us, who defeated us, and all of that. And one of the ideas, one of the examples that are practical is the issue of unemployment. Every year we report on how far we are from being totally consumed into the master's world and registered as people who have work, inverted commas, to do, accounted for, pay tax by the state and all. And this has not been us. This has not been who we are. Yeah. So that's the question that I want to ask.